How is it going on, guys? It's good to see you and welcome back to the channel. Today a more controversial topic that I would like to address on this channel, because as you might know, before and never before actually, we did not address political stuff, religion at all, stuff like that, never. But I feel like today's society is going way down, and perhaps if we would talk more about this, would help and light some light bulbs for some people, because today's society, unfortunately, as I see, is going down really quickly, and the main reason behind that is people today in today's society, they do not question the information they get, whenever it comes from official sources or not official sources. That's the biggest issue actually, that people believe everything they read on social media, and even like normal regular posts which are not harmful, let's say, for other people, but they believe it. And as you know, majority of stuff on social media is completely inaccurate. It's meant to be visualized to attract more people. And what I mean by that is, in fact, when you see, let's say, in our industry like fitness, and you see a lot of people who are looking really good, and they post something about whatever, I don't know, they look really good, but in reality, the perception is a bit different. For example, Mr. Olympia and all those, they are working really hard. They eat very few things. They keep a really strict diet and stuff. So it's not very like for everybody. Like they aspire you to like it, and it's a big thing about it. It's marketing behind it. Like they want you to kind of feel like you can do it, but without that much persistence and that much hard work, by using supplements, which unfortunately, as we know, there are supplements which are really good, and I don't advise not to take some supplements, but there are millions of supplements out there who have no purpose at all. The same happens today in today's world, as you will see on social media with this COVID situation. People accept everything. I understand the fact that people are sick of being restricted to things, but if we would understand that most of the countries who were get rid of COVID or minimize the effects on it, like for example China, we are not 100% sure that there are only that few cases, like 83,000 or so cases in the beginning, and afterwards like stalled and got very few more afterwards. We don't know that for sure because of political issues, but we are pretty sure the measures they took were really effective, which in the Western world we did not, because we took it as destroying our democracy, like destroying our intimacy, like our rights, and it's completely bullshit. What they did is very simple. They restricted everybody in that city, which is a 14 or 15 million people in a city. Imagine that population. It's a very dense population in that city, Wuhan, and all other big cities, major cities as well. What they did is they locked everybody in house for a month, and the government assisted everybody, gave them food and water so you don't have to go out. And what that does for basically this pandemic would have solved it for all the world if we had shut down everything, like literally everything, for like 2 months, and just a very few people would have brought food which you would have paid, like, and you would not have work for 2 weeks or maybe a month at the most. I think it would have solved the things. Why? Because less people would have contact. You would have to really not go out, and the chance to spread will be very minimal. That's the important thing. We adopted very late, and even if we did not know how to do it. Now, addressing the people who do think COVID it's a bullshit, who's a lie, Now, sorry to break it to you, it is not. Forget all those conspiracies. Like, today's society, as I said, has the biggest problem of having information and believe everything they see without even questioning, without reading articles, viable sources of those sorts, as well as for, let's say, vaccines. The same thing happens. Like, people are scared of vaccines, and like not only COVID vaccine, but like the trend of getting vaccinated as a child. More and more people, more and more parents choose not to give their child the vaccines, the mandatory vaccines, and the reason behind it is a very, very, very small percentage of people, childs who get the vaccine, might have some consequences because of that. But to put it in perspective, is like a drop of water in an ocean, basically, according to statistics. Like, you have to understand those diseases, these vaccines, as a child you get, were very, very scary in the 60s, 70s, which, and 20s as well, which provoked massive, massive population death. So a very high percentage of people dying because of them. The percentage of, if I'm not mistaken, for some is 1 in a million to get later on some kind of trouble with this that vaccine as well. Now for the today's vaccine, and to put it in perspective, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a virologist, but I do love science a lot, and I do understand it. I read articles and viable sources, journals, and the published studies. And you have to understand the fact, if you say that a vaccine is created in less than a year, and you're wondering how they did do it so fast, the answer is very simple. First of all, to develop a vaccine, basically, it's not that difficult. It takes a month or two at max. Then you go into testing phase. First thing they tested on mice, then afterwards they tested on people. So the trial is the most part, and then normally a vaccine or a medicine is accepted on a really long trial. Like the paperwork for that, it's really extensive and like really, really long. This is the part where most of the vaccines and medicines, it takes like years to get on the market. But we diminished the regulations for that, so like the paperwork is not that long, first of all, and the second of all, like billions of dollars are pumped into these vaccines researches, so they can develop it faster. Because another issue while developing new vaccines and new medicine is the lack of investments in it. So like you have to do it on a long period of time, because otherwise you wouldn't have the funds for it. And as well, SARS was a pandemic which fortunately enough was not as big as COVID, because it was way more deadly but way less spreadable. On the other hand, COVID is actually less, like most of the people would come out of it, which is good. But you can't compare it to a pandemic from like Spanish flu, for example. The reason being, in the 1920s, when this pandemic was, there are major factors. Just think about it, how much the science, technology and all, advanced in the past 20 years. We are not talking about the 100 years. So just think about that first. Then secondly, you think the media was way different. Actually, most of the people did not have refrigerators. Many things we do have now. So think about that, like television and all. And unfortunately, sadly, major TV and all other news informations, they are trying to hook a bit. So they're trying to make you fear. The problem is yeah, you should fear, but not that much. So like the reason is you have to know, the purpose would be that you would know it and you be constantly know what major things happen. So for example, the new virus type came out, so like the English version of it, or the Brazilian version, or African version. Now these are important stuff you should know about, because a virus always mutates. So like in order to stop it, it's a bit tricky to do it. But to all the people who believe like there's no virus and the mask doesn't help because it makes you more sick, you could be no more wrong and you could not be further from the truth. The reason of mask, very simple. Perhaps not in Western countries as much, but if you would travel to Asia, you would see that people have respect for the others. So when somebody's feeling sick, you would wear a mask, because it's not about you to not getting the virus if you wear a mask, is that I don't give it to others, and because it assures that the droplets are not carried away, because you can cough or sneeze up to like 20 meters or so, and that will be there for a couple of hours, in fact, in the air. So, especially in a closed space, that does not apply in outside. But even in the outside, if you like sneeze, it still be around. And like imagine if in your bus stop, for example, and multiple people sneeze who would have COVID, for example, without a mask, the likelihood of getting others sick is much higher. So at the end of the day, the mask helps you, and if everybody wears it, reduces very significantly the amount of spread. But unfortunately, the problem is, as we see, yeah, we would say, yeah, we wear masks, and still you see that numbers are rising. That's due to the fact that, I don't know if, at least in our country, if I go out and I would start to number the people who I will see wearing the mask correctly, out of 100 will be probably less than 30% of them. So that's the big reason behind it. And I'm really sad, and I'm really annoyed in these things. And I wanted to address them. One thing that, for example, our country did was stopping the access to the gyms, where the rate is over 4. I don't necessarily like this measure. I do understand it somehow, because some countries, like a big percentage of countries, did the same for that, and I got COVID as well in December, and the only place I was without a mask was the gym. So I would say most probably I got COVID from the gym. For me, it was not as a big deal. Like I got rid of it pretty easily. But as for my grandmother who lives with me, now things were very different. She got in hospital and it was quite severe, and it's due to the fact that people as well, like even if you feel sick, you won't go to hospital immediately, for example, which might be good, might be not, because that's another issue we have to address. Like in our country, you have to understand that the standards for hospitals is pretty low, and that's a main reason why people don't want to go to hospitals in the first place. But on the other hand, if you know that your category is a bit more severe, like you're obese or you have diabetes and all those things which affect your immune system, which will fight the COVID, then most probably you should go to hospital anyway, because supervision of doctors, it's still way better than staying home. That will be all for today, and we'll come back soon. I promise. Actually, I started a couple of days ago a few challenges, I would say, to train myself, because since there's no gym in the past 3 weeks, and I probably assume there would be the same situation for another 3 weeks, I started doing push-ups for like 500 push-ups a day with 100 pull-ups a day, and besides that doing like 3 to 4 times cardio of indoor bicycling for an hour, and a bit more shoulder workout without legs, which I should address and I should do a bit more. I have to admit that. But yeah, that would be the next content I would upload soon. Most probably I would show you the results, and is it worth it to do it if you're locked up, let's say, in your house. And yeah, thank you for listening today, and hope I didn't bore the shit out of you. And if I did, I'm sorry, but I really had to address these things, that we should do a bit more research for ourselves, and don't believe everything we see, and don't say that you should get vaccinated like everybody should, because at the end of the day it's a choice. But I personally do it, and the reason behind it is, come on, like, how bad it can be that we get rid of this thing, we can move on. I want to go to France for the Erasmus. I want to travel a bit more. So for that reason, like, don't you want to end this thing? Like, if you think that you will get through this without the vaccine, that I don't want to embarrass anybody or to downgrade anybody, but you should think a bit more and read a bit of more studies. Yeah, that will be all for today, and thank you for listening, and see you soon.